One of my favorite new features in Laravel 4.3 is method injection. Let's switch over to routes.php. And real quick, before we dive into this, notice that we are still using home controller at index, even though we realized in the last episode that controllers now have full namespaces attached. Now, originally, I was very much against the idea of namespace in controllers, specifically because it would create all of this extra boilerplate. For example, you'd need to import every single facade that you use in a controller. In your routes, you'd then have to do something like Laracast controllers, home controller. All of that stuff would just complicate things too much. But luckily, Taylor has thought about this stuff and simplified it as much as we can. So that means in cases like this, it's not necessary. Behind the scenes, Laravel is smart enough to know the path to your controller's directory. And how does it know that, you might ask? Well, you'll find a new namespaces configuration file. So notice that we have our root namespace. Once again, in the previous episode, when we ran PHP artisan app name, it knew to update this file as well. Next, notice that we have these generator namespaces, which the app name command, among others, will use. We are referencing the full namespace for our controllers. So that's good to know. Anyhow, let's go back to routes.php and talk about method injection. And we can use the home controller here. So let's switch over. And now imagine that this index method needs access to some object through the IOC container. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a validator or some kind of API wrapper or any class. It doesn't matter. How would you get access to it? And in 4.2 and below, well, we have a couple choices. One would be to create a variable, myClass, and then just call app_make myClass. Just remember though, because we have a namespace in this controller, you need to use app at the top. But anyhow, that would work. I will simply die and dump my class and view that in the browser. However, I do need to define that class. So let's just throw it in routes.php, class myClass, and we'll say public foo equals bar, and let's take a look. Okay, so if I load this in the browser and we hit the home route, sure enough, this works exactly the way you'd expect. Nothing new here. This is just a simple recap. However, the other way would be to inject this into our controller. Here's how we do that. Create our constructor, and then I will type int the name of the class. So my class, and let's initialize the fields. And now if we scroll down, we can remove this entirely and simply die and dump this my class, and we should get the same thing. So if I come back and refresh, yes, that's still working. So once again, there's nothing new here at all. All of this stuff was accessible in Laravel 4. However, many times you might find yourself in the position where you need an instance of an object, but exclusively for a certain method. For example, maybe you have some kind of validator object that would only ever be relevant within that single method and nowhere else. Well, in those cases, it's a shame to inject it into our controller if it's only pertinent in one area. Well, now in 4.3, we have method injection, and you're going to love this. All we have to do is type int it right here, and that's all you have to do. So try it out, my class, and if I come back and refresh, we still get the exact same thing. This is crazy cool stuff, guys, so make sure you're paying attention. You now have the ability in your controllers to type int any class and have it be resolved out of the IOC container instantly. And don't worry about the order. So for example, if you have a controller method that receives some kind of wildcard, maybe something like ID, it doesn't matter the order that you specify these in. And that's because Laravel is using reflection behind the scenes, so it will automatically figure out how to do this. So that means, for example, if you want to do something like this, where we reverse it, all of this stuff will still work and the variables will be bound correctly. So that's method injection, but this stuff gets even cooler, way cooler, when we start thinking about validation. So we will take a look at that and form request objects, which are new in 4.3, in the very next episode. Stay tuned.